ready?
Yeah.
Yes! This is the Ross Kaminsky Show.
You're a great American.
Now, Ross Kaminsky.
Come on, man.
On Denver's talk station, 630 KHOW.
All right, I just learned from DJ Shannon that today is a very, very important day. And that is, and I haven't verified this, but we're just going to trust Shannon on this, that today is National Vinyl Record Day. Wow, what a huge day. We should all be absolutely celebrating. You know, this... Indeed. Check this out. This is a story that was published late last year, less than a year ago. And I quote, Shannon, listen to this. It's gonna bring a good warm feeling to you. This year, 2020, marks the first year in more than a generation that record sales, physical vinyl record sales, have surpassed CD sales. The reasons are twofold. CD sales have dropped dramatically in recent years, while sales of vinyl records are actually up this year. And while you might think that it's nostalgic boomers or Gen Xers, I'm the latter, by the way, behind the renaissance of records, in fact, surveys show it's millennial customers driving the rising trend in vinyl sales. Wow. I didn't know that. That is fantastic. You know, I think about this a lot. You know that I love listening to music. I don't get to listen quite as often as I'd like to, especially during the week, just with my schedule being what it is. But I've got hundreds of albums. I've got every album that I had from when I was a kid, including the very first few albums I ever had, which I believe were Pablo Cruz Worlds Away, Fleetwood Mac Rumors, Foreigner Double Vision, and Cheap Trick Live at Budokan. I think those were my first four albums in roughly around 8th grade. I still have all of them. I've got hundreds and hundreds of records. And what I've found, just for my life, I'm not saying your life has to be this way, but for my life, and especially back in the day, you think what some rock and roll was like in the 60s, 70s, and 80s when people were making albums, knowing that it was going to come out as a vinyl album with 2 sides or sometimes a double album with 4 sides, and they'd put the record together in a way that was understanding that most people are going to listen to an album side or 2 album sides, but not just pick the one single. These days, people can typically download just the top single, you know? Taylor Swift puts out a new album, and I'm only guessing on this, okay? I'm only guessing, but probably a significant percentage of people who buy music buy like 1 song or 2 songs, the ones that they hear on the radio, rather than buy the whole album. But you couldn't do that when I was a kid, right? You had to buy the whole album, and cassettes too when I was a kid. I was never into 8-tracks. I don't think we even had an 8-track player in my car. But I think it made the music experience different, and I think it also made the process of putting an album together a little different. When the people who were producing the album were thinking, this person's going to sit down and listen to the whole side. You listen to a side of like Rush 2112, and it's basically one side is basically a long musical story. The other side has songs that are maybe not part of all one story, but it is put together the way somebody might put together a theatrical production. Right? This goes after this for a reason, because people are going to listen to the whole album. And, oh yeah, the other thing I was going to say is that for me, given my schedule, usually one album side is a perfect amount of time for me to sit down and listen to some music. You know, sit down with a little glass of bourbon or some dessert wine. Sometimes I read, but usually I don't, and I'm listening to different things if I'm reading versus if I'm not reading. And, you know, an album side tends to be 20 to 25 minutes, and that's just perfect for me. Anyway, it's so cool. You go on, you know, Amazon or Best Buy or any of these places now, and you can buy turntables again. And one of the things that they're making these days, and these aren't the highest quality things, but they're better than nothing, is turntables with USB outputs. And you can play a record through computer speakers. If you're a millennial who doesn't own a real stereo and you tend to just listen to things through your computer, you get slightly better computer speakers and play your record through there. It's so cool. Oh my gosh. All right, as long as we're talking about this, just one other thing on this. So I went over to Soundings a few days ago, and they started selling a new brand of speakers called Magico, Magico. And, you know, my speakers at home, my setup at home sounds pretty sweet. And it's not cheap, the stuff I have at home. And then I go sit down and listen to these Magico speakers without a subwoofer running with them, and it just brings a tear to your eye. Like, oh my gosh. And I now have something to aspire to. These things retail for $42,000. And most Magico speakers, I think, are more expensive than that. And I don't have that kind of money to spend on speakers because that kind of money is in my house. I cannot imagine what my wife would say. But one day I will acquire them. And it will be a wonderful day in my life, and it will make my vinyl albums sound even better. So anyway, it's National Vinyl Record Day. Go ahead and buy yourself a record player or a record if you already have one. You can hear that noise. It's a great sound. I could just sit here and listen to that. I've got a record cleaning machine. How big is this thing? It's about 18 inches square and about 10 inches tall. And you put the record down on it. You screw a little thing down on the spindle in the middle. It holds the record down. You hit one switch and it spins like a record player. And then you spray this very specific, liquid that is designed as an anti-static record cleaner. You spray it on the record, and then you swing this little clear plastic arm that has a slit in the bottom of it. Imagine a round tube like the size of a small cigar tube, but imagine that it has a slit in the bottom. You angle it around so it's going out over the record. You hit another switch and it turns on a rather powerful vacuum that is built into this machine. The arm goes down onto the record, and the record spins under the arm, and the vacuum pressure is pulling up all the fluid with the stuff that was on the record that gets caught in the fluid. It pulls it up into that slit in the bottom of the arm, and then you have a clean record to play, and hopefully you don't have too much of that kind of sound that Shannon was just playing there.
Producer Shannon.
Yes?
One of the things about digital audio, you're talking about CDs or downloads, is that if you're listening to a CD and it's not in order, or you're listening to other digital downloads, you end up missing stuff like this. Right? Now, what's supposed to happen?
With a purple umbrella and a 50-cent hat.
They go together, and when you're listening to a CD and the songs don't match up, or you're listening to digital downloads, and one doesn't follow the other, like God had it intended on Zeppelin 2.
Yeah, exactly. And what about the end of Queen, We Will Rock You? And then there's a big Journey song that goes directly from one into the other, like that too. Yeah. Yeah, it's good point. Yeah, very good point. I love vinyl. I'm going to have to go listen to some today. Oh, I bought a record. Oh, I got to tell you about this record if you guys like music at all. So the drummer for the Grateful Dead is a guy named Mickey Hart. And I'm not a big Grateful Dead guy. I saw him once. I didn't care very much. It's not really my scene. But this guy is an incredibly talented and interesting percussion guy who is really into world music and has some fantastic albums. He's got an album called Planet Drum, really, really good. I don't think there's any vocals on it at all. It's not all him playing, and it's not all just regular drums. It's really fascinating stuff from around the world. So this dude who I've been talking to about music, he recommended an album to me called Dafos, Dafos. It's not easy to find. You can find the CD. I found the album. I bought the album and the CD. The album is a half-speed master, so it's a full-size, 12-inch vinyl album, but you play it at 45. And when you record it that way, you can get a lot more sound into the album. But it is one of the most, it's just a brilliantly recorded thing. And it's not recorded in a studio. It was recorded in a space, I forget what they called it, like the Oriental Theater or something somewhere years ago. But this guy mic'd up the room, and they just started playing, and he's got this man and his wife from Brazil who do these various Brazilian percussion and a little bit of vocals in the background, and it's just fabulous. Again, it's called Dafo. So you can find the CD around. I think I got the CD for $10, but you could easily find it for $15. And it's just great. But there's this cool thing. I was listening to this interview of Mickey Hart talking about the making of this album years ago. And again, they're in this place, and they're really, it's very experimental kind of music. They've got gamelan bells in there, the sort of long set of Indonesian bells are playing gamelan on this album. It's pretty cool. Oh, actually, on my YouTube channel, one of the first videos I posted, if you go find my YouTube channel and go way back, was when I was in Indonesia and watching somebody play the gamelan, and I put up a video of someone playing gamelan. It's pretty cool. So anyway, they were trying to figure out some stuff to do, and he's got this huge drum, I guess, that they call the Beast, that is from his Grateful Dead days. And I guess he had it there when they're making Dafos, and he's trying to figure out how to make some cool noises, some different noises. And so as he tells the story, what he did was, the Beast is this drum that's in this very big, heavy frame. So he picks it up. I don't know how far off the ground he picks it up, because you're not seeing this part. You're just seeing him talk about this. He picks it up and drops it to make this unbelievable sound. And what he said was that made a 12 hertz signal. And he believes that 12 hertz signal is the lowest frequency ever recorded onto vinyl. And it's on this Dafos album. Normally when you're listening to, very good stereo speakers, typically what you're talking about is 20 hertz, that's 20 cycles per second, which is more of a sound that you feel than hear. It's moving so much air. It's such a low frequency. And up to 20,000 hertz. Now, I had my hearing tested not that long ago, and my hearing, as an old guy, is done at around 14,000. And that's pretty common for someone my age and someone who's been to rock concerts. And it's actually probably slightly better than average for people my age. But, you get speakers that can go to 20,000, and you're not going to hear a lot of that upper end information. And below 20 hertz, it's just, it's more like a pulse in the air. But I've played it, but I don't think my gear can go down to 12 hertz. I think it can go down to about 20. Anyway, just such a cool thing. All right, I wasn't really planning on talking about all that, but what an awesome, how could we not, on National Vinyl Day, National Vinyl Album Day. Oh, boy, I could talk about this all day long. All right, we live in a weird world. Oh, before I tell you about the weird world, let me tell you about a couple guests we've got on the show today. In the next segment of the show, actually, we've got Stephanie Humphrey, who is a technology and lifestyle expert with ABC News, and we are going to talk about the intersection of technology and the new school year and some of the best tech ideas for students right now. We got that. At the top of the 7 o'clock hour, we've got Steve Moore, economic advisor to former President Trump and chief economist of the Ross Kaminsky Show. He's going to join us. That'll be by Zoom, so you can see me and Steve at facebook.com/630khow. At 8:05, we're going to have Kristen Strom from the Common Sense Institute. Remember, I mentioned to you, and you may have seen other places as well, even the Denver Post picked this up, the study done by the Common Sense Institute that said that Denver appears to be spending 3 or 4 times as much, not just Denver, Denver and the metro area is spending multiples per homeless person each year compared to what we're spending per K through 12 student each year. And that seems like a shocking thing. So we're going to talk about that. And we got a lot more as well. Let me mention one other thing here before we hit a short break and then get to Stephanie Humphrey from ABC. You recall this non-story that turned into a story because everybody in the mainstream media hopes there's racism everywhere so they can accuse Americans and white people and the whole country of racism and stuff like that. So you remember the story a few days ago. The Marlins were playing here. One of their players named Lewis Brinson was up to bat. I've actually seen the video now of the fan who was sitting behind the batter in a very good seat at Coors Field, and you can see the guy turn to his side, the fan, turn to his side, so he's not looking at the batter. He's looking somewhere off to the side, and he yells, "Dinger," and then he starts waving his hand and yelling, "Dinger." He's trying to get the attention of the Rockies mascot named Dinger so he can get a picture with him. And it's really obvious from the video that the guy is saying Dinger and not the N-word, and that he's not looking at the game when he's yelling it. He's looking off to the side somewhere else in the stands. And so, I guess in the interest of just being super helpful, this player for the Marlins who says that he's listened to the tape and he keeps hearing the N-word. No, you don't. He says, maybe the Rockies should change the mascot's name. That's what he says. Very, very helpful. He says, it sounds a little similar, especially on video. And the answer is, I think if you're that hypersensitive and you need Colorado to change the name of the mascot, a name that's been in place for 27 years or something like that, just don't come back. We don't need you here. Has nothing to do with your color. It just has to do with you being a dillweed. That's our mascot's name. It's not that complicated. We'll be right back.
KHOW Denver, 630 KHOW. An iHeart radio station. Available everywhere on our free iHeart Radio app. #1 for music, radio, and podcasts.